We get it poppin', homie, day and night. Got the party jumping, about to break the ice. Stay up on my grind, that's my way of life. I got tunnel vision, I'ma chase that ray of light.
I just think the Packers are now more worse off than they were before. Jobs in Arizona are on the line.
And they need an offensive line.
Yes, they do. They need an offensive line. And you know what I wrote in my notes? O-line, 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 and then O-line again for the next 50 picks. I don't care if it takes 10 years to build this line. Every pick must be offensive line until they get it right.
What is going on, everybody? You are back on Jake's Takes, the podcast presented by Tunnel Vision Sports. As always, I'm Jake Serrano. Happy to be back with you. Happy Saturday. Ready to get this weekend rocking and rolling. Long, stressful week. I don't know for my guest today if it was the same, but for me, a lot of work. A lot of work has gone into this week. Not only for this show, for some other shows I'm doing on campus at OCC, where I go to school. Just a lot of stuff going on, and the weather's been terrible. I've been fighting I've been fighting bad allergies all week, so I've been down in the dumps. But I'm fighting, right, Jared? I'm fighting. So let's get right to it. I got two Broncos fans to introduce today. I'm going to introduce the first one right now. Fawaad Farooq. He's been on the show before. Fawaad, welcome back. Happy to have you. How you doing today?
What's going on, Jake, man? Excited to be here. Thank you for having me. It's a rainy day down here in Brooklyn, New York, too. But, I'm just excited to get talking sports, huge March Madness tournament coming to an end. We got our two champions from the women's and men's side. I'm just excited to get talking some sports and get it going over our mock drafts and see what we got going on with the NFL draft right around the corner.
Yeah, it's pretty rainy here, too. So trying to bring a little excitement to the show. So we got Jared Danko coming on today. I'm gonna bring him on, introduce him just in a little bit. But me and Fawaad, we're gonna start off with our first segment. So here we go. Fawaad, we had the March Madness tournament this whole month of March. Exciting stuff. We know Kansas, they won in the men's tournament, and South Carolina, they won in the women's. So Fawaad, I'm gonna ask you first, what did you enjoy most about the tournament this year, whether it was on the women's or men's side? What was the most enjoyable thing about the tourney this year?
I mean, overall, when you just look at March Madness, it's just a culmination of so many different things. We see so many coming out stories. We see teams that we've never heard about all season long coming out and showing out. Teams like St. Peter's and like the Cinderella stories that are created throughout this tournament. It just shows the beauty of the tournament, how much it takes to get to a certain point in this tournament. And when you look at St. Peter's, they took down Purdue, they took down Murray State. And for me, overall, it's just about how the culmination of these teams just coming together and creating a great environment, but most of all, that underdog mentality that's created throughout the tournament and showing they're there to win it all, just like St. Peter's was able to do. So the big part for me was definitely the Cinderella stories that are created throughout this tournament.
Yeah, I hear you. That's probably the theme every year going into it. And it gets more exciting every year as it goes on. Me being from New Jersey, and it's got to hit home for you because you're right in Brooklyn. But the St. Peter's run, I mean, just marvelous, just remarkable, a remarkable run that nobody expected. I'm sure you didn't expect it. I didn't expect it. Just a small college team coming out as a 15th seed, running it all the way up to the Elite Eight. Just a wonderful run. And you don't get a lot of that. And going on the women's side too, when I was watching Iowa and Creighton, just amazing games. You see, the 15 seeds coming at it, a 10 seed over a 7. Sometimes, you don't see it like that. You don't see that a lot in sports, but in March Madness, you definitely see it a lot more, and really it brings the excitement level up. So, Kansas has come back in the championship game. Wow, let me tell you, I was a little in and out in the first half, and I got up in the second half. I said, "Oh man, I can't fade out for this game. I need to get up. I need to get ready for the second half." I think Fuad, I don't know if I'm wrong in this, but I think it was 40-25 going into halftime, and then, man, I said, you know what? Just for some reason, I felt like the Jayhawks, they're going to do it, but I just didn't know how. I said, they're going to have to stop UNC. They're just going to have to pile on the points, right? 20-6 run coming out of halftime. Amazing stuff, which is going to bring us into our next segment. So Fawad, what do you take away from some of these, from the 2 title games we saw? Do you have any takeaways or anything you wanted to say about them?
I mean, overall, what I really have to say is, we discussed this in last week's roundtable. I said it very clearly that Kansas was the most complete team in this tournament. And the part in which they faced so much adversity in the second half, coming out and facing a 15-point deficit, this team just didn't flinch at all. And that's in large part due to their veteran leadership that they have on their team. A lot of veterans on their team with Ochai Agbaji, David McCormick, Christian Braun, and Jalen Wilson, and Remy Martin. This team was just poised to win it all. And they got a head coach in Bill Self that just has been in the big time moments. The thing that I felt that North Carolina didn't do well was, they had a first-year head coach in Hubert Davis that just struggled to make adjustments. And those are the things that stood out to me the most, when you have an experienced head coach and then on the other side where you have a coach that's just getting into the game, getting into the mix. We saw North Carolina face adversity in this tournament against Baylor. They had a 25-point lead in that second round game against Baylor, but luckily they were able to pull it out in overtime. But, mistakes just caught up to them in this one. And, it was just Kansas pulling away late in this one. And like I said all year, they were a model of consistency all year long. And like I said, Agbaji, McCormick, they're 2 of the best big men in the country in college basketball. And that's why they were able to be so explosive, and Kansas was able to pull away and win this championship.
Yeah. The round table we did coming back to bite me just a little bit, but I did say Kansas was going to beat Villanova, but man, Duke really just missed the mark. But yeah, I mean, an amazing run from Kansas. I think they outscored, my notes I wrote that 47-29 in the second half against UNC. That's remarkable. And from what I remember from the game, they were outpacing them. Just the speed of the game Kansas brought was too much for UNC. And not only that, I mean, the Tar Heels were just missing way too many shots. And finally, Kansas was finally able to get in the paint in the second half and turn the tides pretty much for the game. On the women's side, the women's game was awesome. I mean, when you have a player like Aaliyah Boston, right? And she's the best player on the women's side in the country, okay? And she is not the leading player on that team in terms of points. She had a double-double, right? Helping the team in other ways. And then you have Destiny Henderson coming out and taking over for this team. That's what I call balance, okay? This team, this Gamecocks team, had to rise up from last year after their championship loss to Stanford after a missed shot, a last-second missed shot. They didn't make it, and Stanford wins, right? They come back. You have to do a whole season over again after all of that, and they push through, and they're the number 1 team. And Dawn Staley, the head coach, they're pushing, right? And you have the number 1 player in women's basketball, and she is not your dominant player and she was dominant, but Destiny Henderson took over that game. That's what I call a balanced team. And I'm pretty sure that they outshot UConn at the free throw line, like 26-4. I think they had about 26 shots to 4 shots on that, right? And UConn's it was just absolutely remarkable journey. And not only they had to come back from last year, so both stories from both sides really just make the whole tournament for me, and really, really something spectacular to watch, truly. But Fawaad, you got any final thoughts on that?
I mean, definitely from the women's side, Aaliyah Boston, she asserted her overall dominance in this series. She dominated. The key stat in this game was definitely the rebounding disparity. UConn was out rebounded by 25 altogether, and South Carolina was just able to manhandle them on the offensive boards, grabbing 15 more rebounds. Like I said, Aaliyah Boston to come out from last year, missing that layup to advance to the NCAA championship game, and then, just showing her overall dominance this year. It was definitely a redemption tour. But for me, I had UConn winning this year just because of their coaching pedigree. Their coach, Gino Auriemma, 11 national titles heading into this game. One of the greatest college coaches we have. and he was 11-0 in championship game. This was his first loss in the NCAA championship game. You know, the way they were just able to contain Paige Beckers and, you know, dominate overall on the defensive end, it was just undeniable. You know, they really deserved this championship overall. Credit to Dawn Staley. Destiny Henderson had her best career performance, 26 points. They were able to dominate the boards decisively. And overall, it's just a credit to South Carolina on an incredible college basketball season and an even better finish.
Yeah, like I said, remarkable runs by both. And I finally got something right in my bracket. So I picked the Gamecocks to win from the beginning. I finally got something right. At least I can have a little pride in something. But we're going to move on to our next segment. Here we go. So I got Jared Danko coming on with us today, my second guest of the day. Jared, how are we doing? Welcome back.
We are doing pretty good today because we are less than 3 weeks away from the NFL draft, and I am pumped. I am ready to watch it and see how it all unfolds.
Right. I'm excited, Jared. We know we talked some football last week, and that's why I brought you both on the show. 2 Broncos fans. I don't even think the Broncos have a first-round pick, but that's okay. They got Russell Wilson now, so that's all that matters. But we're ready to rock and roll here on this Saturday for you. We're going to talk some mock drafts, some sweet, sweet mock drafts on this Saturday. And I don't even know where to start. Where should I start? Well, I'm going to start with my mock. That's where I'm going to start right there. So I don't know if you guys definitely looked at my mock. I know Fawaad texted me about my mock. My mock was a little crazy. Had a lot of trades in there. So I'm just going to go off my top 10, and then everyone else can go off their top 10. We'll all feed off each other from there. So I had the Lions trading up. I really think this is a juicy spot, this number 1 spot, right? Because I don't think it's a surefire pick this year like Trevor Lawrence was last year for the Jaguars. I think the Jaguars could go all line, right? Or they could take Aiden Hutchinson, right? I don't think there's a certainty at that pick. And if you're the Lions, and the way I was thinking about this, trying to make it a little more creative and fun for the show, but I thought this was the best possible scenario, even though they're only moving up 1 spot. I don't know how much that would cost them to move up 1 spot from 2 to 1, but you get a game changer in Aiden Hutchinson. You are building towards finally changing the franchise. You have to change the tone of the franchise, and he will do that for you. He is dominant. He's probably the best player or one of the best players in the draft. So if you have the opportunity and the Jaguars are uncertain, I think you absolutely trade up to get him, even if it's only 1 spot. I had the Jaguars taking a tackle out of North Carolina. I think they need I think the tackles are going to go off the boards quick. I don't know what a lot of other people think, but there's a need to protect your young quarterback in Jacksonville, and you have to go after it. And I think it was like a year or 2 ago, the Jaguars were probably dead last in the league in pass protection. Now they did sign Cam Robinson. They franchise tagged them and brought him back. But I think if you bring in the tackle, you add more protection to your young quarterback, and you can trade back, get a couple more picks in the draft. But I'm just going to quickly go over my rest of my picks. I got Evan Neal from Alabama, the tackle. He's going to Houston. Again, you build around your young QBs or whoever's going to come in there, and you build around on the offensive side. Games are won in the trenches. Okay. This is crazy. I don't think anybody has ever put this in their mock yet. I don't know. I got the Chargers traded all the way up to 4. I think they need another tackle on that line. You were going all in. That AFC West is all in. That AFC is all in. I think you need the surefire tackle. You need to go all in. You just missed the playoffs last year. Now it's now or never, honestly, for the Chargers, especially in that division. Again, I had another trade coming up. This might have blown you guys away, but I don't know. I got the Packers coming up. Packers, again, they just signed Aaron Rodgers to a 3-year deal. Again, the Packers, you have to get something done at one point. You can't keep telling me you're a contender and then keep going to the playoffs and losing, right? You got to make moves at one point. You just lost Devontae Adams. You just lost MVS at wide receiver. Your depth there is low. You have to pick it up. And I think Garrett Wilson's probably one of the better wide receivers in this draft. You go there. I had the Jets coming back in from the Panthers. I think the Panthers need to pick up more picks in this draft. Now, whether or not they draft a quarterback, that's on to them. Does the rookie quarterback make them better than Sam Darnold? They're probably at the same level. Does Kenny Pickett give you the best chance? Maybe. But I think the Panthers need to trade back, get more picks. The Jets come up. They get Sauce Gardner, fill the need, one of the best corners in this draft. probably going to be a lockdown corner for years to come. And the Jets finally can lock that up. At safety for the Giants, Kyle Hamilton comes in, one of the better defensive backs in this draft. He's rangy, he's long, he can play all over the field, and he's probably the best player on the board at that point, and the Giants pick him up. Drake London going to the Falcons. Perfect scenario. They need a wide receiver over there in Atlanta. After what happened to Calvin Ridley, it's a small, and they don't have Russell Gage. He left, so bringing in a big wide receiver like that would help. Bring on Kayvon Thibodeau from Oregon, the defensive end for Seattle again. Could draft a quarterback here, but I think he's the best player on the board. And again, you got to remember the next year, there's good quarterbacks next year as well. Seattle did ask for Drew Lock in that trade, so I think they bring in one of the better players on the board. And I think the Jets are going to draft a wide receiver unless they don't trade for one now. And Chris Olave, again, the best wide receiver at the board at the time. I love Chris Olave, so I'm sending him to New York. Fuad, I know you had your hand up. I wasn't trying to hold you up, but go ahead.
I mean, I definitely like the way you broke down this mock draft, but for me personally, this is going to be a draft where a lot of teams are going to be able to address their needs. We look at this draft, there are basically a lot of edge rushers on this team. This draft is very heavy on edge rushers. You have Aiden Hutchinson, Trayvon Walker, Kayvon Thibodeau, Jermaine Johnson. There's going to be a huge upgrade on the safety positions. A lot of teams are going to have a lot of chances to upgrade throughout this draft. And you look at Kyle Hamilton, Jaquan Brisker, Daxton Hill, Jalen Pitter. And then you look at the offensive line. The teams that are really contending for a championship and you have a good quarterback under center, you're going to need to address the offensive line position heavily, because if your quarterback is not protected, we know that it's not going to end well when you're in the playoffs down the stretch and your quarterback needs that protection. We saw that in this year's Super Bowl with Joe Burrow getting sacked about 7 times by Aaron Donald and that Rams defensive line. So I think that offensive line position is the biggest need for most teams to address in this year's draft.
So I kind of got a little. I hear you. I kind of got a little away with from the main question. Fawaad and Jared, before I start rambling on again, just give me your. I know Fawaad, you just gave me one, but your biggest takeaway from your mocks, both of yours, and then we'll get into other people's. Fawaad, Jared, whoever wants to start, but your biggest takeaway, or just give me a synopsis of your mock.
I think overall that this draft is going to be really unexpected. We're going to see a lot of unexpected things take place. A lot of teams jockeying for position, making trades. In my mock draft, I didn't specifically do that because I didn't know exactly how it would plan out. I think personally, the quarterback position is going to be something that a lot of teams are going to be looking out for. I know a lot of teams, including the Falcons, we have Seattle, we have Pittsburgh. There are a lot of question marks at that quarterback position with what these teams want to do. But, in my mock draft, I wrote specifically that I have Falcons trading up with Houston and they select Malik Willis. And I did that specifically because, that quarterback position needs to be addressed in Atlanta. I know Arthur Smith, he had Matt Ryan last year. It didn't hold up too well. There's a wide receiver concern in Atlanta, but I think that Malik Willis is going to be a game changer in this year's draft. And whoever ends up getting Malik Willis, I think he's going to be a starter out of the gate. And I think the jockeying for Malik Willis is going to be the question mark. Who is going to trade up to get this quarterback, this stud? This guy is a dual threat quarterback that's been able to throw the ball consistently, run the ball. For me, he's a Lamar Jackson 2.0. The guy does everything you ask in a dual threat quarterback. And when you look at it on paper, that's what this league is leaning towards nowadays. You look at Lamar Jackson, you look at Kyler Murray, you look at Patrick Mahomes. These guys are not just known for being pocket passers. They're known for being able to run the ball out of the pocket, make decisions quickly, and being able to be mobile with the football. And if you're going to look at this quarterback position in the draft, it's going to need to be addressed, and Malik Willis is going to be a big part of it.
Yeah, I think it's hard for us to grade players and to evaluate their value because obviously we're not in the rooms. But there is a few teams like Seattle, like Atlanta, like the Steelers that need QBs. You could even argue Detroit at the end of the draft or whoever. But or even Washington if they draft one later in the rounds. So I can't specifically argue against you, but what I can say is I just do not think he's going to be drafted in the top 3. And if that's the case, I think there's a lot of other players positionally that could really suit them. And they brought in Marcus Mariota, who's eventually going to be the bridge to somebody. Now, whether that's this year or in the second round or whatever, I just can't see them going up there to get it. I'm going to let you shoot back at me for a second, but I just can't see them going up all the way up to 3. I think they're in the top 10 already. But it would be the question of if the Panthers wanted a QB, then I could see where you're at with that. But I'm gonna give you a second to come back on me on that.
I mean, I could definitely agree with you on that. But the biggest concern I have is, teams addressing their needs. We know the Steelers ended up getting Mitchell Trubisky, but is he really the permanent answer at that quarterback position? These are things. I know Mike Tomlin is definitely I know he wants a guy like Malik Willis in that offense. And when you look at a guy that you had Ben Roethlisberger, a pocket passer quarterback. I know with the way the league's trending with these mobile quarterbacks, you want someone like Malik Willis on your team. This guy has rushed for over 800 yards his last 2 seasons and had double-digit touchdown rushing totals over the last 2 seasons. And if I look at Malik Willis, he's a complete package. I think he's the best quarterback in the draft. And there are going to be a lot of teams jockeying for him. I think Seattle might be able to trade up for him. There are the Falcons there. But I feel like with the Falcons, I had them in my mock draft trading up for Malik Willis. But now that I'm having second thoughts, I'm like, oh, they don't have that depth at wide receiver, They lost Russell Gage. They have Cordero Patterson. But what are you going to do with one receiver? There's not that diversity you look at on that offense. You address that quarterback position, but you don't have the weapons to complement Malik Willis. And Seattle could be a possibility if you look at it. But the thing is, at the end of the day, they don't have the offensive line to protect Malik Willis. But at the same time, you look at it, he's a mobile quarterback. He could make plays outside of the pocket. Even though your offensive line can collapse on him, that guy has the ability to scramble out of the pocket, get first downs, make plays. And that's what makes Malik Willis a difference maker. But if it was up to me, I think I had Atlanta initially trading up for him. But if I were to change things up right now, I would say Seattle and Pittsburgh make a run at Malik Willis and try to acquire him.
Yeah, I think I hear you. I think Pittsburgh and Seattle are going to be the 2 biggest teams hedging at a quarterback. Now, whether Jared, you put in your mock a little later, so I definitely want to hear that today. But I think those are the 2 teams really hedging it out. And it's going to be, I'm curious to see what they're going to do with Sam Darnold in Carolina. I'm personally not a Sam Darnold fan. Clearly, I got Zach Wilson behind my back. But Jared, take us through your mock. Let's hear about it. Tell me some key things from it, and let's hear it, Jared.
All right. So I didn't do any crazy trades like you did. I wasn't going here, there, everywhere. But thinking about trades, it really makes me think about how in the past couple draft classes that we had, it's been very quarterback centric. It's like, oh, where's Zach Wilson going to go? Where's Trey Lance going to go? But this is a bit more on the backside this draft class. There's a lot of big name players on impact positions that aren't quarterback that are really taking the center stage, which I think is a really nice change of pace. And it leaves this quarterback position a bit more of a mystery. So on my mock draft, I had my first quarterback, Malik Willis, going at 6 to the Panthers. But I feel like there's a very good chance because picks 1 through 4, Jacksonville, Lions, Houston, and the Jets, they're not going to go for a quarterback. But I feel like the New York Giants at pick 5 are really the team that are probably going to be getting a lot of calls about trading up to leapfrog Panthers, because the Panthers are the first team that really might have a need for quarterback and have first stab at it. So I think that the Giants definitely have a good opportunity to get trade calls by either the Falcons, the Seahawks, or the Steelers, as we talked about. But I feel like the big focus of this draft is about how you can add the best player available in your draft class to your team. So right off the bat, I have Aiden Hutchinson going 1. And then 2 to the Lions, I have Trayvon Walker. Then Houston, who I believe is the best overall player in the class, is Kyle Hamilton. I have him going to the Houston Texans at 3. And then the Jets, I have them picking up a cornerback, Derek Stingley Jr. I don't have them going Sauce Gardner. I have him going a little bit later. but I think that they both, either one could go number 1 or number 2, but I just have Singley going at number 4. Then at 5, I have Akeem Ikwanu going to the Giants. Then Malik Willis, my first quarterback. And then the Giants again, Tavon Thibodeau. And then to finish off the top 10, you got the Falcons going Drake London, wide receiver. The Seahawks addressing a huge problem with offensive line, getting Charles Cross. And then the Jets at 10, getting Garrett Wilson help out their wide receiver core. That's how I have my top 10 going. And a couple other notes that I have on here. I have other 2 quarterbacks. I have at 19, Kenny Pickett's going to the Saints, right above the Steelers at number 20. And to wrap up the top 32, I have Sam Howell going to the Lions at the end of the first round. So that's kind of how I have my first round mock draft going.
I think there's something we're all in agreement here that, unless you guys didn't notice it, I did. Malik Willis seems to be the first quarterback we all think is going to get off the board. Whether he goes off later in the mid rounds, I think he'll end up going to the Steelers. Whether he goes to the Falcons earlier in the top 3, or whether he ends up going to the Panthers, there seems to be a universal Malik Willis, and he's definitely trending up the boards. He has, and I think too, Kenny Pickett rocketed up the boards this year as well. They are saying he is the most pro-ready quarterback and the most pro-ready to go. Like, I mean, you put him in the lineup, he's ready to go. He could be your game manager for that season. I think there's a lot of untapped potential in Malik Willis that teams like last year, like Zach Wilson. Now Zach Wilson's going to start. He has a big arm, and he's got that talent that you don't see on the outside, making that big throw at his pro day, right? You don't see that. So I think there's going to be that ceiling that people are going to try and get. And I think teams are going to go after Malik Willis for that reason. But Fawaad, I wanted to know what you thought, your thoughts on, I have the Chiefs getting Jameson Williams in my draft. I do know, Jared, what do you have? Jared has, I feel like I saw him going, oh, you have him going to the Saints. Okay. Yeah. I was just wondering, Fawaad, what do you think about the Chiefs at wide receiver?
Chiefs, I don't know. The Chiefs addressed their wide receiver position in free agency. They got Marquez Valdez-Scantling. They were able to get Juju. But when you look at the Chiefs, like, you have Patrick Mahomes under center. The guy can make plays. He's one of the most transcendent quarterbacks we have in the league. But the big question with the Chiefs has always been that defense. The defense ended up costing them in the AFC title game. You have to address the defense. I had them taking a cornerback and an edge rusher with 29 and 30. And it might sound crazy. A lot of people are actually saying that the Chiefs should address the wide receiver position. You have 3 pretty decent wide receivers. I mean, you have Kelsey. He's not a wide receiver. I mean, you have the best tight end in the game in Travis Kelce. You have an above average Juju Smith-Schuster. Hopefully, we're going to see how that chemistry plays out throughout the season with Patrick Mahomes. We have Marquez Valdez-Scantling, someone who has very underrated speed. But with the Chiefs, I think it's a no-brainer. At 29 and 30, you have to address the defense, because their defense is a big cause for concern, and especially in an AFC West loaded with great defensive teams and great defensive lines and great secondaries. You have to load up on that defensive line and that secondary.
Yeah. No, anyway, I hear you on they need to go defense. There's definitely a way around it for them. I just think they have to go wide receiver. Some of the other things I had in my mock, like I said, the Steelers, I think, are going to take quarterback. I think Seattle comes back in later and gets Kenny Pickett. They need a QB over there in Seattle. Comes in, he's pro ready, like I said earlier, and he gets ready for Seattle, and he's ready to rock. I think the Panthers can end up getting like a Desmond Riddler later in the second round. He's a winner, true winner there over there in the Bearcats, and somebody they can kind of cultivate there. The problem is what are they going to do with Darnold? And does Matt Rule have enough time to save his job? Because I feel as though he's on the hot seat. I'm sure you guys feel the same way. Does Matt Rule have enough time to do that? Like I said, I think this is going to be a trade-heavy draft. Fuad, you said the needs of these teams, that people, they need to pick for their needs, right? I think there's teams going to be jumping teams for needs of certainty. They need that player at that position. They're the best player available. They come ahead. I think this could potentially be a trade-heavy draft in that regard, because teams are going to come up. the wide receiver. I think wide receivers are going to go off the boards. Tackles are going to go off the boards. I think it's going to be that kind of draft.
Yeah, I think it's actually one of the most diverse drafts we've had in quite some time. You know, a lot of teams are going to be trading up for what they want. And it's not going to be, I feel like in certain aspects, all right, you're looking at the first 2 picks. I think definitively you have Aiden Hutchinson. I think he's going to go at 1 to Jacksonville. But after that, I think this draft could go anywhere. This draft could be, there's going to be a lot of trading going on in this draft. I didn't specifically have that in my mock draft because I don't know exactly what will go on, but I'm expecting a lot to change in that first round. A lot of teams are going to be trading up for players that they desperately need, that are going to have an instant impact, instant starters for their team.
Jared, I wanted to get to you really quick. Do you have any takeaways from anybody else's mocks? And then Fawaad, I'll go back to you and then I'll come back to me. Any final thoughts on this subject, or because we're going to keep it draft, we're going to go somewhere else, but do you have any takeaways from anybody else's mock, Jared?
I mean, looking at everyone else's draft, even Fawad's draft, it's going to be wild. It really is. I mean, it always happens every year. It's never goes as expected. There's always something that throws it all out off. Last year, the thing that comes to mind is Pat Surtain getting picked at 9, throwing off the Cowboys, Eagles, Giants plan. So they start trading all around, getting different players. Absolute pandemonium ensued. So there's always going to be something that happens that throws everything off. So I think there's a very good chance that somewhere, I'm going to say somewhere between 8 and 12. So Falcons, Seahawks, Jets, Commanders, and then Minnesota Vikings. I feel like that is definitely the region where something unexpected is going to happen. Because I feel like at the top, there's a consensus couple people that are going to be going to those teams. But once we start getting to the middle, the door is wide open for any team to do anything. And trades are going to be happening. And I think that would definitely be the region where it'd be best suited. And it's going to be wild.
So everybody stay tuned for these mock drafts. I didn't tell you guys, but I'm releasing these mock drafts out. Actually going to make we're in construction of a Jake's Take social media page. It is coming out, and I'm going to get these mocks out to the public so everyone can see them. But rolling on within the draft, we're moving on to our next segment, Trades Galore. And here we go. So there was a trade earlier in the week with the Saints and the Eagles. They swap picks. The Saints come up to 16 and 19. The Eagles get 18. They get a first-round pick next year in 2023, among other picks, and they got a 2024 second. They got a couple of lates and stuff like that. But now the Eagles, they have 2. The Saints have 2 picks, all right? The Eagles originally had 3. So with this trade, who do you guys think the Saints are going to draft with their new picks? And what does this mean for the Eagles moving forward? So, Jared, I'm actually going to start with you on this one.
So the thing that's most intriguing to me, I feel like the NFC South is such a place of just obscurity in the NFL right now. Because you have the Buccaneers. I feel like it's pretty general consensus. They're going to be the number 1 team in the division, most likely the number 1 team in the conference. So it's really those bottom 3 teams that really could go any which way. And I feel like this is the Saints' move. They're saying that they're trying to get into the playoffs. They're trying to get this wild card spot because they believe they can beat out the other 2 teams and become one of those teams. So I think with the Saints taking these 2 first-round picks, in my mock draft in particular, I had them taking a wide receiver because that's a position in need. And Michael Thomas, he's been off for a year on his injury. We don't know how he's going to immediately return to the position. And then you just have a couple of just other teams, such as other wide receivers. Marquez Callaway is one that comes to mind, but I can't really think of anyone else on that team. So I really do see them taking wide receiver at that position. Personally, I have Jameson Williams from Alabama going to the Saints, but also I feel like moving up, it also gives them power over the other teams if they're moving up above the Chargers and the Eagles. If they want to take a position to get an impact player over those 2 teams, and they moved up to do that as well, that's also a very good possibility that I see. But personally, I feel like they could be doing this for a win now move, but also getting them geared up towards the future. Because over the past 2 off seasons, they've really been shedding off cap space. Like now they're in the top 10 of the most amount of cap space after being a negative 70 million in the toilet. So they're really making moves, and I think they're gearing up for the future. And I think that they're trying to take their stake in the division, and they're trying to do something in the NFC. And this is my main takeaway from that.
Yeah, I can agree with most of that. I definitely think they're trying to go all in. The NFC has gotten worse in a sense. They're bringing back Jameis Winston, bringing some continuity there. They hired in-house with Dennis Allen. So the Saints, they are going to make a push for that playoff spot, especially with Tom Brady coming back in that division. You got to play tough. And this could potentially be it for the Saints. They got to try and make a push for the future as well, because I don't know if Jameis Winston's going to be there. He played well before his injury. I have them going in the trenches both ways on defense and offense. I think you build up there. You find a huge run stopper who can get rid of Christian McCaffrey and Cordell Patterson and Leonard Fournette, who's coming back to the Bucs. And you bring in the offensive tackle for Central Michigan, or whoever's there at tackle. I think you build up there because you lost Armstead. Remember, Teron Armstead was their top tackle on that team. So you build back the O-line. I do think they need another wide receiver. I think they could get that in the second round potentially. John Mechie's still out there. Remember, I think he's going to – remember, he got hurt in the playoffs for Alabama. So he's going to be sneaky, whether he goes in the second or third round. I think he's going to be out there. So the Saints, they definitely could draft some more receivers later in the rounds, whether they do it now in the first round or the second. But I think they fix up the trenches. That's where the war always is. That's where the game always starts, up front in the trenches on both sides. But Fawaad, let me hear what you got on this.
You guys are giving a lot of positives for the Saints. I'm gonna lean towards Philadelphia on this one, man. I feel like they did a great job in managing their draft capital this year. So they had 3 first rounders this year. Now they have 2 this year, 2 next year. Plus they have two third rounders for next year, 1 third rounder for next year. And the year after that, they have another third rounder. I think Howie Roseman did an incredible job with this one, with the way he was able to spread out that draft capital. And I feel like the Eagles have some major needs that they need to address. And if I had to go at 15, I think they would take Devin Lloyd at the linebacker position. They could definitely fill a big hole in that. And then on top of that, you have Jordan Davis, defensive lineman. He's an absolute run stopper. And if you have him on your defensive line alongside Fletcher Cox, that defensive line is looking incredibly, incredibly tough. And for the Saints, you look at it, they're very stiff at that wide receiver position. And if I have to look at the 19 slot, the one which they traded with Philly for, I think they're going to go with Treylon Brooks for the sole fact that we don't know what Michael Thomas is right now. We don't know where he's going to go, what he's doing yet. He was one of the better wide receivers in the league the last 2 years when he actually was on the field. But when you look at that wide receiver position, they definitely need upgrading. They have Traquan Smith. They have Alvin Kamara at that running back position. Always an added premium when you have a guy of Alvin Kamara's caliber at that running back position. But for the Saints, you definitely need to address that wide receiver position. And I had them taking a tackle at 16 because, to fill that void with Teron Armstead is going to be vital to open up those holes for Alvin Kamara on that offensive line. It's going to be incredibly crucial that they fix that void with Teron Armstead. It's not a hole that could be easily fixed because he's one of the best tackles in the league, but getting a first rounder in Bernard Raymond, it could definitely help and go a long way. He could be a good offensive tackle for years to come. So 16 and 19, Saints go tackle and wide receiver.
Yeah, I want to say we all have the Eagles going defense, whether it's linebacker, D-line, or corner. I have the Eagles going linebacker with Devin Lloyd, and I have them going corner, Trent McDuffie from Washington. So they got to build up on defense. They for sure need some linebackers over there in Philly. But I think that definitely this sets the Eagles up for the future. Sometimes 3 first-round picks is not a blessing. There's the odds are you'll mess them up. I saw that with the Minnesota Vikings not too many years ago when they drafted Cordell Patterson and a couple other guys in that draft. Can't remember it fully, but they had 3 first-round picks. They didn't go as clean, but I think this sets them up perfectly for the future. They got 2 first-round picks next year, and you got to think about, I don't know how for sure I like Jalen Hurts, and I think he deserves a shot. but I don't know how much they are leaning into in Jalen Hurts on that. Definitely gives them a safety blanket for the future to come. And if he is good, gives them a foundation to build around him. So the Eagles are definitely trending in the right direction. I think they go defense in both those picks. Fuad, what do you got?
I mean, for Philadelphia, this is a big draft. I felt like a couple years ago, they took Jalen Reagor at that wide receiver position when Justin Jefferson was on the board. And now you look at that transcendent talent that Justin Jefferson has become. You're like, this is going to be a crucial draft for Philadelphia, man. They messed up with that pick with taking Reagor over Jefferson. For me, I think Hurts is a really good quarterback in this league. He could definitely get them through the division. But I know definitely that Philadelphia has bigger goals in mind. They want to be able to compete in the playoffs. So this is going to be a huge draft for Philly. And, when you have like two picks in the first round, people are going to tend to look at you more. You're going to get more of the attention. And then during the season, when those picks are either living up to their expectations or just falling way below their standards, those picks are going to be incredibly important for Philadelphia and show that if they were able to do something good in this draft, they definitely have to have two elite caliber players with those two picks they have in the first round.
Jared, any thoughts on this subject? I had something to say to Fawaad, but I just lost it, so I'm gonna let you go first.
Looking at the landscape of the NFC, I think the Eagles definitely did win this trade. Just being able to move around their draft capital and kind of load up for the next draft as well and get extra picks there. It's really going to benefit them come in the future. But it does intrigue me because as you're talking about Jalen Reagor, are they going to mess it up? Are they just going to do something that they really shouldn't do? I mean, personally, I feel like they'll do fine. They're going to address needs on the defensive side. That's personally where I have them going. But it definitely does make you think. They messed up before. Do we think enough's changed where they might not mess it up again? I don't know. It just makes me think. But looking at the trade from a holistic point of view, definitely would say that the Eagles did win the trade.
Yeah, now I remember what I was going to say. Yes, Jalen Reagor fans will not forget that pick over Justin Jefferson. That's what I wanted to say to you. They will never forget that. They did redeem themselves. They got Devontae Smith last year. We're going to see what he develops into. I always thought that's the Deshaun Jackson, Michael Vick they've been looking for since when they had that. I think that's it. Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith. Yeah, I don't think Eagles fans are ever going to forget them picking Reagor over Jefferson. But I wanted to get into your guys' minds as the GM of a team, right? And we're gonna dive deep into that. So I want you guys to put your shoes as a GM. You guys are in the shoes of a GM right now. Which team, if you only had one team, what team would that be to trade up in this draft? If there was only one team you could choose, what team would that be? Jared, you want to top this off for me?
Yeah, I'll start. Personally, for me, I think of teams that they're kind of in a state of like nothingness at the moment, but they've really been able to build up a lot of draft capital. And the team that comes to mind is the Seahawks. So they just made a trade. They got rid of their franchise quarterback. He's gone. They got a bunch of picks for him, and they got a couple of players. So how do you build up this team from basically scratch and just a boatload of picks? I feel like making a trade up, as I talked about earlier, to the Giants at number 5, being able to leapfrog any other team that would try to get a quarterback. I feel like that would be personally the way to go, because then you're getting that position. You still have a lot of capital for the future. You still have an extra first round pick next year. So you're able to build up around them for the coming years. And that'll allow you to actually make a team off. And this is just his rookie year. Just, get him in the flow. It can have, if you want to, you can have Drew Lock start for this year. How that goes, we'll see. And then in the future, you can have this quarterback that you hop up for. Personally, I would have Malik Willis going 1, but there's a possibility that they'd go another direction, such as Kenny Pickett. So you have to think about what would be the best way to build your team for the future, and having all of that potential stored up already from building up the capital. That would be the way I would go.
Yeah, so I wanted to make this a little spicy on you guys, add a little flair to this conversation, because I haven't heard anybody say this, but I really think it's going to happen. Now, I was going to say the Chiefs, but I feel like that's too easy. So I had, and as I said earlier, the Green Bay Packers, I really, truly believe whether they go all the way up or they just trade into the mid rounds, whether it's 15, 20, I think at one point, no matter where it is, they are going to trade up in this first round. They absolutely need a wide receiver. And I think around wherever they are, 28, and I want to say 22, I know they're in the later 20s. They're going to have to jump somebody to get a wide receiver. And Jared and Fawaad both were saying it. I think it's going to be a leapfrog type of draft. And you have to secure a receiver for the future, and especially losing Devontae Adams and MVS. You're stuck. You're stuck as the Packers right now. And if Aaron Rodgers is coming back, you've made it to the playoffs plenty of times in a row. I would say these past 3 years, it's been the NFC Championship twice, the division round this past year. I'm tired of seeing them make it to the playoffs and not getting further than what their potential should be. This is it. You never know when Aaron Rodgers could say he's done, especially what we've seen in the past couple off seasons. And this offseason, you just don't know. And if you're the Packers, you got to go all in. I really wish Devontae Adams would have stayed. They could have got a receiver. But I think if you're the Packers, you whether it's all the way up, whether it's in the mid-20s and the teens, I don't care where it is, I think the Packers are going to trade up.
I'm just gonna add a little bit on to the argument about the Packers. The Packers have done Aaron Rodgers so terribly. For me, I feel like it's just so unforgivable. The guy of Aaron Rodgers' caliber, and you're not putting like talent around him to be successful. I know you have Devontae Adams over there in Green Bay, but he's no longer there anymore. You look at your draft decision past couple of years. You draft the best quarterback in the league. You draft his backup in Jordan Love. To be honest, brutal. I said this in the last episode when we were together. I said that pick for me was just to light a fire underneath Aaron Rodgers. There was no type of logic behind that move, but this guy is a back-to-back MVP in the league, and you're not putting the wide receiving core around him to be successful. I just don't understand. Obviously, I do think that the Packers need a wide receiver. Their wide receiving core, they have no clear number one option at that wide receiver position. To address that need that they need Jameson Williams. I think that it's definitely a great fit for him. And the Packers definitely need a wide receiver. So, whoever is there at any given time in the first round, I think they're going to pick him up regardless, because that wide receiver position, if they don't trade up, if they're not leapfrogging up to get a wide receiver, that wide receiver position is going to be razor thin. And whoever is there when the clock hits Green Bay, they're going to have to get the best available wide receiver, whatever way you put it.
I think there's a lot of depth in this draft. I just think if you want to get a starting receiver, now skills positions are way different than quarterbacks, but even if they stayed where they are and had 2 first-round picks, and let's say they drafted 2 wide receivers at the end of the first round, like Jaheim Doxson from Penn State, or whoever ends up, let's say Treylon Burks ends up, let's just say he ends up at the end of the first round, and they draft both of them, I could get past that, but I don't know how this is going to shape up, and I could really see them missing out on a starting talent right away. And I think that's what they have to do. But Fawaad, are you agreeing with the Packers are going to be the team to trade up, or did you have another team that you think is going to be the team that trades up in this draft?
I think the Packers are definitely a great example, but I definitely had another team in mind, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. So let's just assess this Steelers team like right now, what they have right now. They have Mitchell Trubisky at the quarterback position. They have Najee Harris at the running back position. They have 3 very great wide receivers in Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, and Anthony Miller. And they have a great tight end in Pat Freiermuth. When I look at that roster on offense, for me, it's just they're there, but they're a quarterback away. And like I said, we're going to go back to the Malik Willis situation. If whatever is going on in that GM's head, I'm telling you right now, you have to go out and you have to get Malik Willis in this draft. That he's going to be a transcendent talent in this league, and having Malik Willis under center with the Najee Harris and Deontay Johnson, these guys are incredible players. And on top of that, you have a great defense with TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Devin Bush. You got Miles Jack in the offseason. This team is going to be very well coordinated on the defensive side of the ball. TJ Watt's coming off a Defensive Player of the Year season. And, for me, if you look at the Steelers roster, I don't know if you guys will agree with me on this. They might just be a quarterback away and going back into playoff contention. They were in the playoffs last year. They got blown out by Kansas City. But if you look at Malik Willis, he really does change the dynamic of his team. If he is the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, I really have him as the offensive rookie of the year. And he's going to turn out to be a great stud if the Steelers end up snagging him in the draft.
I think wherever Malik Willis goes, I definitely think he's going to have to sit just for where he came from. I mean, personally, I've never heard of Liberty. So the competition he's faced, he's going to have to get acclimated to the NFL level. But I think Pittsburgh's the perfect spot. Or a lot of these teams that have a bridge quarterback like Atlanta or like the Panthers. I don't know if he'd fit that well there, but they got Darnold there. So any one of these teams that, like Seattle's a little different, right? You could start Drew Lock, but to me, that's a team that needs a Kenny Pickett to start right away, right? Because we kind of know what Drew Lock is. But a team like the Steelers, who have Mitchell Trubisky and Dwayne Haskins, or the Falcons, who have Marcus Mariota, they can wait the year. And the Steelers can do the same thing. They can wait the year. They can play it out, see what happens. Whoever wins that competition, I'd probably beat Trubisky. But they're a win-now team. Ben Roethlisberger was on the decline. So I agree with you there, Fawaad. If they can get Malik Willis with Mike Tomlin there, one of the best head coaches in NFL history, they can cultivate this kid into being a pro-ready quarterback, whether it's in a year or at the end of the season or whatever. I think that's a great fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing about teams should be nowadays is that, they want to draft a quarterback, but right out of the gate, they are expecting them to be starter ready. That's just not how the league works. Watching behind a veteran quarterback should be a crucial thing in this league, learning the system. And I feel like Malik Willis could do that behind Mitchell Trubisky. He's a great quarterback. Mitchell Trubisky had a great tenure in Chicago. But the thing is, Mitchell Trubisky is not that quarterback you want leading your franchise long-term. I'm pretty sure you guys could agree with me on that. He's not the long-term answer at that quarterback position. But learning behind a quarterback like Mitchell Trubisky for Malik Willis could be an incredible experience, and that could really excel him in his game and his learning experience, and that could prepare him for the long-term future at a great career in the NFL.
That was the question with Zach Wilson when he went to the Jets at 2 last year was, is he ready, especially in New York? Is he ready to go? Can he start? And we saw him struggle first through the first 6 games before his injury. Then Joe Flacco came in and Mike White came in. They took over. Zach Wilson took a couple weeks, sat behind it. He actually came out of the injury, I feel as though, improved at the end of the season. So there's definitely a way to season rookie quarterbacks. And some teams throw him out right away. Trevor Lawrence, I feel as though he had to go out right away. He was probably the most ready out of that draft. Mac Jones, again, led that team to the playoffs. A lot of help around him, but he led them to the playoffs. So I think if you're a rookie quarterback like Malik Willis, there's time to sit back and watch. And I think if you're a quarterback in the first round and you go to one of those teams, you're in one of the best situations possible, because not only are you taking a redshirt year, you are learning behind a veteran quarterback, behind good coaches. And especially if you're in the Steelers situation, I think that is a great scenario to be in. Jared, I really want to hear your thoughts on that. If you have any thoughts to piggyback on that.
Yeah, I feel like the only quarterback that is really ready to start day one is Kenny Pickett. As you already said before, he's the only pro-ready quarterback. But you have the quarterbacks such as Matt Corral, Desmond Ridder, Malik Willis. You have all these quarterbacks that they have the tools to put it together, but they're probably not ready to do it on day one. So having them go to the teams that already have an average quarterback already instated on those teams really gives them an opportunity to learn and grow. And it does make you think where you balance drafting for being ready day one and having skill set to get it done in the future. Because do you want to draft someone such as a Mac Jones that's going to come in day one? He's going to play some pretty solid football, but how much higher is Mac Jones' ceiling than we've already seen? We're not really sure how much higher. Or do you want to go for someone that has the tools to get it done and be one of the best quarterbacks in the league, such as Zach Wilson, who has the big arm, the improvisation, but still has some of those setbacks that might not make him as pro ready as Mac Jones were. So it definitely does make you think, how do you want to address having some of these more raw quarterbacks with the higher skill ceiling? And I think the best way is to have them sit as the 49ers did with Trey Lance this year, how it had him behind Jimmy Garoppolo. I feel like that was definitely the model for how to deal with your rookie quarterbacks. And I feel like that's probably the way the team should go this offseason.
I agree with you. I hear you. Last year was a different animal of a draft. I think a lot of those quarterbacks were ready to go. Like I said, Zach Wilson was a different situation, but if you can sit behind someone and get locked and loaded and get ready for next year, like Jordan Love has for the past 4 years, I think he'll be ready to go. Now, I'm not even going to scratch the surface on that situation, but my man's got to start at one point. He's got to show something. He's been sitting there forever, so we'll see what happens. All right, guys, so we're going to move on to our next segment. We're cleaning off the draft stuff right there. A lot of stuff going into that. I think the draft is going to be huge. I think there's going to be a lot of trades. You guys have a lot of stuff going down as well. The Steelers, quarterbacks, everything going on. But we're going to move on to our next segment. We got a fun segment coming up. Here we go. Into the sportsverse once more. And I'm bringing back something I talked about on a earlier show. But since I have two Broncos fans here, I just wanted to hear your thoughts on the situation. So not too long ago, the NFL Network, they put up something I like to call drafting in your own division, building your team for money. So you get $15, right, to build your team. You get to pick one quarterback, 2 offensive players, and 2 defensive players. And like I said, I want to revisit this because I got my 2 Broncos fans here, and it's the AFC West. And I think this is going to be one of the best divisions, or the best division in football this year. I'm actually going to lock that down right now. It's going to be the best division in football. So let's build our team. There's no Tyreek Hill in this right now. This was done before his trade, but I wanted to bring it back up. Who wants to start? Does anybody want to start on this first with their team? I'm interested to see how our teams compare.
I was looking at all of our teams, and it kind of hit me a little bit. Both of you guys have Justin Herbert at that quarterback position, but I'm gonna go with my guy Russell Wilson, and here's why. Herbert has not won a single playoff game yet throughout his very short tenured NFL career so far. Russell Wilson has won the most games in a 10-year span in NFL history. So I pick Russell Wilson at quarterback for number 1. Although Justin Herbert is an incredibly talented quarterback, that does not diminish the fact that Russell Wilson is also just as talented. So I picked Russell Wilson at quarterback. And on offense, we went similar routes. I think Davante Adams, surefire, one of the best receivers in the league without a doubt. And Austin Eckler being one of the better top 10 running backs in the league, I went with him at the running back position. So Davante Adams and Austin Eckler are my 2 offensive weapons. Austin Eckler can also be a passing back, catch the ball out of the backfield, which gives him an added bonus. So I went with him at the running back position. On defense, I went Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack, although he's regressed over the past couple of years in Chicago, I feel like he's going to take a big leap this year in Los Angeles with the Chargers. And I hate to say that because I'm a Broncos fan. I don't want him to play well, but with Joey Bosa and him on that defensive line, it's going to be incredibly exciting to watch. They're going to be wreaking havoc on opposing opponents. And Justin Simmons, for me, one of the best safeties in the league without a doubt. I love this guy to death. He's one of the best safeties in the league. I went with him at my second defensive position. And to round it off, those are all my weapons that I have selected.
So this was a little interesting because there's not really like an offensive line. I guess that would be implemented. I don't really know. So I originally had Khalil Mack. And something that's interesting about this is none of us have a Chiefs player. Really shows you the top names really diminishing off their. I mean, many of us could have picked Patrick Mahomes, but we didn't because there was a little of a money thing going on here. But I got Justin Herbert for a steal at $3. I got Jerry Jeudy I think for $1. Devontae Adams had to buy him for $5. I got J.C. Jackson, who probably is the top corner in that division, for like $4, and Justin Simmons for $2. But I didn't really see. I thought this was going to be like a passing type thing, so I went all out on the D-backs and on the wide receivers. Now, I personally think that my team is the best team out of all of these teams. You guys can't even argue that. It's hard to argue. My team just looks so good right now. I got Devontae Adams, young Jerry Jeudy, Herbert, who's going to bomb it downfield to both these guys. And then I got your guys locked up. I got Justin Simmons and J.C. Jackson, two of the best young defensive backs in the league. I think your guys' teams don't stand a chance against mine. It just looks too good. It's looking too good for me. I used all my $15. It's just looking way too good for my team. I don't think you guys can top that. Any thoughts on that? Because truly, I really think my team would totally duel you guys out.
Jake, I beg to differ. I think my team, it's taking the cake. I really do. So started off with Justin Herbert at quarterback. Personally, I feel like the difference between Patrick Mahomes at 5 and Justin Herbert at 3, the disparity isn't there to spend an extra $2. When with Justin Herbert, you can throw absolute bombs down the field. It's going to be great. Then we're on offense. We're getting the number 1 wide receiver in the league, Devontae Adams. He's going to be that big target and that great route runner that Herbert needs for success, and he's going to be going down the field. And I went a little of a different route for my second offensive player. I went at $1. I went to Javonte Williams. I know Fawaad knows, but if you've not seen highlights of this man, oh my goodness, he just runs.
He's the next big thing. He's the next big thing.
Flat out
He
amazing.
really is.
He has a ton of talent.
Yeah, it's so underlooked that they have like a 2 running back set with Melvin Gordon and himself with Javonte Williams. But if Javonte Williams is in that backfield all alone by himself, I don't know if you saw his highlights from last year, but that guy breaks tackles like it's nothing. He's dragging defenders with him 15 yards down the field. He's an incredibly special player, and I'm so excited to see him play for my Broncos. And you know, it's going to be a bright future for this Denver team now that they got Russell Wilson under center with that young wide receiver core. It's going to be so exciting to see these guys. And I think Jared would echo me in saying that, you know, it's definitely a good time for Denver fans right now.
It's a beautiful time for Denver fans right now. You know, it's been in like a 6-year slump, but we're back and we are raring to go. So I feel like I had to pick up Javonte Williams at $1. Just had to. And on the defensive side, I'm going with the Chargers squad. I got Khalil Mack and J.C. Jackson. This league, it's all about getting pressure on the quarterback. That's the exact reason why the Bengals made it to as far as they did, even with their shaky O-line. They were able to get pressure on the quarterback, and they were able to force them to make mistakes. So bring Khalil Mack, even if he's starting to get older, maybe he's regressed a little bit. Or as Fawaad said, he's going to take a big step back up to where he was. I feel like he's going to have a very solid season. And then J.C. Jackson coming on the backside, he's going to be your lockdown corner coming from a disciplined system in the Patriots. And he's going to be your lockdown on the backside. He'll be able to lock up Devontae Adams. I really do think that. So, Jake, I'm not sure. You might not stand a chance.
Yeah, no, I think my team has like I said, the best chance. There's no argument against it. I really do think, though, when you look at this scenario, and this is what I get out of this chart, is you look at these players. The Chargers, I mean, they loaded up this offseason. And Jared, we talked about this the last show. I really think the Chargers are going to be the number 1 team in this division by far. And then you got the other 3 teams, right? Well, Nathaniel Hackett, rookie head coach, and Russell Wilson coming over. That Broncos team on paper is loaded. If they can put it together, they could potentially be the best team in that division. And you got the Raiders with Josh McDaniels coming in and Devontae Adams. And they got Chandler Jones and Max Crosby, right? And Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller, right? They're probably going to make it to the playoffs too. Then you look at the Chiefs, like you said last week, Jared. Then you look at the Chiefs, right? And they're the seasoned team in that division. They're the team that's made it to the playoffs year in and year out for the past however many years. They've won that division, and they've most certainly earned it. I think they've taken a step back this offseason. Now, I really, truly think all 4 of these teams are going to end up making the playoffs, but there is some type of digression in that division, and someone's going to end up winning it, and that someone is going to be the LA Chargers.
LA definitely took one of the biggest leaps in this division. I feel like the Chiefs are the team that probably regressed the most, but I feel like for Denver, the luxury that Russell Wilson's going to having a play caller like Nathaniel Hackett do things that he likes in the offense is going to really show this year. He has the necessary weapons he has with Judy, Sutton, KJ Hamler, and then you have a great running back with Javonte Williams, a far better offensive line than he had in Seattle. And that's the one thing that we're going to get to see this year. Russell Wilson going to be able to scramble out of the pocket, make plays with his mobility, things that he didn't have in Seattle. He's going to get to do in Denver. And that's what makes this Denver team so incredibly exciting. And, it's going to be a race to the finish. It's going to be exciting to watch all four of these teams go at it. I feel like, in my opinion, when these four teams go at it with each other, all of them should be primetime games without a doubt. There should be a slate just reserved for all four of these teams to go at it in their divisional matchups. But if I had to go with one right now, I don't care if I'm being biased right now. I got to go with Denver. They got Russell Wilson. They got that position on lock. I feel like Nathaniel Hackett brings a type of personality that we haven't seen in this Denver locker room in a long time. They have the necessary weapons. And, I feel like Russell Wilson was that missing piece that they needed to address. They got a lot of help on the offensive line compared to years prior. And I feel like this Denver team is going to explode onto the scene. And I feel like we're going to be able to win the division this year. 6 years out, not being in the playoffs, this Denver team is going to make a splash this year. And I'm incredibly excited to see how they go up against this division.
Jared, go ahead before I round this out for us. Let me hear what you got.
Something that I just read today that I find very interesting. I was reading an article about strength of schedule for all the teams in the league. The Broncos have the easiest strength of schedule out of all of them. Not saying it's an easy schedule, but it's 18th. It's the 18th ranked in the league in terms of how easy it is. When you have teams like the Chargers, the Raiders, and the Chiefs. The Chiefs have the hardest schedule projected schedule in the league. The Raiders are right up there at number 28. The Chargers, I believe, are at 24, if I'm remembering correctly. So those out of division games might actually determine who wins the division, just because it's games against winnable teams that otherwise the teams such as the Chiefs and the Raiders, they're going to be playing difficult games, as the Broncos are going to be playing the Panthers, the Jets. You got the Ravens, and then
we're winning that game. Please stop.
Oh, right, my bad. So the Broncos are going to lose to the Jets. I forgot about that part.
That's right. Speaking for Jets,
and then the Jaguars playing the bottom teams of the division. And that might be the edge. Those very winnable games, not locks as Jake might say, but very winnable games. They might actually be the difference between taking the division and losing it. So I'm still not gonna. I already said this last week. I'm not gonna put my money on who's gonna win the division. I'm just gonna say the Broncos. So it's not really a fair description of what I think the division is gonna happen. But I would be very surprised if we don't have a new division winner this year.
For sure. I really think the cards are about the tides are about to change over there in the AFC West. And real quick on the Jets, we're going to win. We're going to go perfect season this year. We're going to the Super Bowl. We're going to win it. Those are expectations every year. I expect the team to reach those. So bar none, New York Jets probably going to win 7 games. So those are my expectations for us. But come on, man, you can't rule us out against the Broncos. Jets are loaded. We got Zach Wilson. Fawaad, anything you want to round out this segment for us? Anything you got?
Yeah, I actually have a funny story to share. A couple of years ago, I went to my first ever football game. Broncos took on the Jets at MetLife Stadium. And I think you'll remember this game that I think Isaiah Crowell had like 200 plus rushing yards on the day, 3 touchdowns. It was probably the most miserable day of my being a football fan, watching that stadium go crazy behind the Jets. Jets faithful is incredibly resilient. They got a great stadium behind them. They got a great group of fans behind them, but that was just a disappointing day for me. But hopefully Zach Wilson could take that leap into his second year in the league. But I feel like the difference maker for the Jets is definitely going to be Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh is in his second year in the league as a head coach. But the thing with Robert Saleh I found out is that last year the Jets just looked shaky in every game. didn't look like they were prepared for the task at hand whenever they took the field. And I felt like that is something that's up to the coach to change. That's the coach's culture, that he is supposed to motivate the players. He is the head of the locker room and he's supposed to change that. I don't know how you feel at that head coaching position. Do you guys think that Robert Saleh is that answer at that head coaching position for the Jets? I want to hear from Jake first, because
Don't even start with
big
me.
answer at that Jets. He's a big Jets fan, so I want to hear from him first on what he thinks about Robert Saleh.
Of course. He is a player's coach. He is something they needed an infusion of since Rex Ryan left. I think he's a better overall head coach. I think a lot of it's going to fall on what happens this season, though. So if the Jets end up winning 3 or 2 games, I honestly and sadly think there's going to be a clean slate everywhere again, because just the way ownership thinks, I think Woody Johnson honestly is just tired of it. And not to say he hasn't put, it's also his fault too. We haven't put together a good team in over a decade, right? So besides the 10-6, blurb we had in 2015 or whatever it was, but I really hope Robert Saleh can pull together. I think they are. I think Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh have a plan. They seem to connect really well in all the meetings I've watched and read about. So I think Robert Saleh is going to bring a lot to the table. He's a good overall head coach. He's not just a good defensive coach. He really manages the team really well. So I have good expectations for the Jets. I don't keep my expectations high for them anymore, considering the fact that I've been disappointed so many years in a row. But I do think that the Jets can win at least 6 or 7 games, and I think that will buy them time for another year. And if they do win more than that, I will be very ecstatic about it. But Zach Wilson's coming to his own. He brought the receivers into like a mini camp this past week. He brought Denzel Mims. He brought over Corey Davis. He brought Elijah Moore. They got the young talent. They started a ton of rookies last year. This team is young. They're hungry and they're ready to rock. And they've brought in some good talent in free agency. I'm interested to see what they do in the draft. But the Jets could potentially be pretty sneaky in that tough AFC. Jared, what do you got?
So Fawad, first, I just have a question. What year was that Broncos-Jets game you went to? Because I've been to one football game before, and it was a Broncos-Jets game at MetLife Stadiums. What year did you go?
I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago. I think it could have definitely been the same game because the Broncos got blown out.
It had to be 20, somewhere between 2016 and 2018, because that's when the Jets had Isaiah Corral within that one.
Because I only go to MetLife Stadium games when the Broncos are playing. I went last year in the season opener when they played the Giants, and that was the last game I went to. The first game I went to was the Broncos and Jets.
I feel like they had Josh McCown at quarterback. Did you watch a game with Josh?
No, they had Sam Darnold. They had Sam Darnold.
Oh, was it Sammy? It might have been 2018, Jared. 2018.
It was. It might have been.
Okay, because my first thought when I heard that, I'm like, did we go to the same game? But no, mine was a couple years.
Wait,
mine was a couple years prior.
There's an easy way to settle this. Who was their quarterback at that time?
It was Geno Smith. So a little earlier.
No, for the Broncos, who was their quarterback?
Oh, Broncos was Peyton Manning.
Oh no, I went when there was Case Keenum.
Okay, that's easy to settle there.
Yeah.
All right.
But I wish I went to a game where Peyton Manning played. Like, damn.
Peyton Manning was awesome for the Broncos.
It really was something else. And that was also, I don't know if you remember this player, Fawad, but Ronnie Hillman, running back for the Broncos.
Of course, running back behind C.J. Anderson, of course.
I saw his first game, and it was 100-yard. It was his first 100-yard game, and his first game that he's ever started, and that was something really cool. But getting back to the Jets, I feel like Robert Saleh is probably the answer, but it's just the Jets are in a process of rebuilding. They still have to get a lot of pieces and feed in that offense. So I feel like even if the season goes so this year, I feel like Robert Saleh will definitely come back for a third year in the Jets organization. So I don't feel like this is definitely him on the chopping block this year. I like what he's been doing. I feel like he's a good personality and he really brings the players together. So
I will say one thing I always hear as a Jets fan, and you guys probably get it too. You're all in the insider stuff with the Broncos. I got everything with the Jets. So one thing I keep hearing, and it seems to be a rumor, but I hear it from like insider Jets analysts and the guys who write for the beats and stuff like that. I keep hearing that if they have a bad season, I'm not saying Robert Saleh, but it seems as though Joe Douglas might be on his way out, the general manager for the Jets. And I'm really hoping that they can win at least 7 or more games, be a 500 team, at least be in competition for the playoffs. I'm tired of seeing these New York. I'm making a statement right now before we go to our final thoughts. These New York teams, I'm tired of seeing them every year mathematically out in the beginning of the season, whenever the earliest they could possibly be out. I'm tired of it. I'm really hoping the Jets or the Giants, I don't care if it's both, by like week 15 are somehow still in it. Even if they get out by then, I'm fine with that. But I really hope that these two teams could be, or at least one of them could be competitive this year. Fawaad?
When you look at the Jets in this division, I'm like, there's a possibility they could lose all 6 division games with how good these teams are in the division. You look at Miami, Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill,
It's
like
tough.
what an upgrade. Mac Jones I feel like the Patriots are one of the teams that regressed a lot in that division, but you look at Buffalo, they're like a surefire team that could win the AFC right then and there. If you look at their team, huge extension for Stephon Diggs yesterday. I wouldn't be surprised if Jets even lost all 6 games in their division this year, to be honest, because that division is absolutely loaded and stacked.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I look more at the AFC as a whole because it's going to be tough for them overall. But it's really going to be a toss up for them this year because I don't know what's going to happen with Tua. I think the Jets could beat Mac Jones. They didn't do it last year, but it's they could do it. I don't think they're going to beat Buffalo, but yeah, I think the inside of that division's even harder than you think. They have to fight from the inside. Think about how they got to fight from the outside, right? So they got a tough all around, and I'm really scared. But I keep my expectations to my minimum there. But since we've moved on to a different direction, let's get on to our final thoughts for the show. My final thought, I'm going to put it out there right now, was I saw something on social media this week with DK Metcalf. I can't tell you if this is an honest statement or not, but he said, quote unquote, I eat 1 meal a day, drink 1 coffee, and eat like 3 or 4 bags of candy.
So yesterday I woke up, worked out again, came home, showered. I'm hungry. Run to Starbucks, get a quick coffee. That's gonna hold me till like 4, 5 o'clock. This 12, okay. So it's gonna hold me for like 4 hours.
Dang.
Around 4:30, I ordered some candy and a water. So I got, what did I get yesterday? Got the Skittles gummies. Then I got the Lifesaver Creations. They the same size bag, so I just mix them.
So it's safe to say we're going to see a DK gummy at some point, right?
Yeah, okay, for sure.
Okay, y'all heard it. Another certified moment.
Hey.
Yeah.
Get the gummy, get the candy, get the water, eat that. That's gonna hold me to like 8 o'clock where I'm having dinner, 8, 9. And then I eat dinner, go to sleep.
I could not tell if he was being serious or not. I just thought I really wanted to bring it up. Something I saw this week. I thought it was the craziest thing I've ever heard. For a pro athlete to be in 3 or 4 bags of candy and be as fit as he is, I thought it was the craziest thing. But you guys, I know Fawad's got something about the Lakers. Jared, let me hear what you got. But Fawad, go ahead first.
I feel like that's crazy for him to say that. His physique is impeccable. For him to eat like 1 meal a day, I think he just said it for comments, for publicity. But, bags of candy, it sort of reminds me of Marshawn Lynch when he used to always be having a bag of Skittles on the sidelines before games and after games. But, definitely an interesting take by DK Metcalf.
Jared, any final thoughts on this episode? Do you want to refute on that? And then Fawad, if you want to go back, I know you had something else. I'll get back to you in a second. But Jared.
Yes. I actually saw something interesting going on about DK Metcalf and the Jets. I saw that the Jets actually, there's rumors that they put in a trade offer, including their first overall pick, their 10th pick this year, to get a trade for DK Metcalf, and the Seahawks just refused it. They said that
I will say, Jared, that as of yesterday, I did see things from Jets reporters that the Jets were trying to call and actively trade for him, but Seattle's not taking calls. I saw that Seattle is just not taking any calls right now. I don't know if that's the same
quite
thing
honest. Yes, it is. I just find it strange that the Seahawks wouldn't want to move away from something, because the wide receiver market is so inflated right now. You have people getting trades for numerous first round picks. The amount of money that you're spending on locking down wide receivers You just had Stephon Diggs signed a new extension, $104 million. So the market is going so high up for wide receivers. I just find it very strange that the Seahawks aren't even open to that type of conversation. But I just thought it'd be something nice to bring up as a Jets fan. It might be nice to have a big time wide receiver.
Yeah, there was talks. I talked about it last week on my last show that there's talks of AJ Brown potentially or DK Metcalf. I think the Jets get a wide receiver, whether it's in the trade or in a draft. They're going to get a wide receiver at one point in this month. I believe it's going to happen. And hopefully they can lock that up, get Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, Braxton Berrios, and get one more guy in there. But Fawaad, let's round it out for us. What do you got? Your final thought for today's episode before we close it out?
I mean, I know we didn't talk much about basketball today in our episode, but, something that's been bothering me for the past couple of days, as you guys may know, that the Lakers missed the playoffs. This team on paper, presently constructed with LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Russell Westbrook, had the best odds in the preseason to win it all. And for me, my personal take on this might be the best team on paper to ever miss the playoffs. I don't know if you guys will agree with me on this, but any team that has LeBron James and misses the playoffs, it's always a shock. LeBron James is my favorite player. And to see the Lakers go out the way they did, I feel like it was disappointing for the sole fact because of the Lakers culture. Something about the Lakers culture is they only embrace winning and winning titles. And when you go out and don't even make the playoffs, this is an absolute disappointment season for the Lakers. And to do it in the way they did, I know they were facing many injuries with Anthony Davis, LeBron James missing many games, missing a better part of 2 months of the season. It's incredibly disappointing, but I just want to hear what you guys think. Is this one of the most disappointing seasons you've seen out of a team with this much talent on their roster and missing the playoffs? What do you guys think?
For me, I think this is probably the ultimate biggest disappointment I've ever seen unfold in basketball, in the NBA, right? You bring in Russell Westbrook, right? You got AD, you got LeBron, okay? Carmelo Anthony comes over. They pick him up, they sign him. I just find it so funny that a team built like this falls apart and not only misses the playoffs, they miss the play-in tournament, right? So they miss it altogether. Just one of the bigger disappointments in everybody, I'm talking every single person I ever talked to about the NBA this past offseason said, oh yeah, for sure. Lakers number one, they're going, they're the team to beat. Just a complete and utter disaster in Los Angeles. And I don't think anything can compare to it right now. I just wow. LeBron missing out. AD, they had the injuries, Fawaad, but man, AD's missed some time, a lot of time. And just wow. And Russell Westbrook, I really don't think he panned out the way they wanted him to. Just a really big disappointment. I agree with you. And over there for the Lakers. But go ahead.
But the biggest thing for me is what I'm incredibly disappointed in is that we weren't able to see this Lakers team at full strength throughout the whole season. I know that, the injuries really creeped in for this team. But at the end of the day, what this season really proved to me, and I really hate to say it, I thought that LeBron James would be able to change Westbrook's playing style and make him acclimate more to being a team player. But after this season, I can truly say that Russell Westbrook is not a team player. I don't think that's the one thing that holds him back from winning a championship. If we're talking about Russell Westbrook on a championship winning team, I just think everyone's crazy if you're talking about Russell Westbrook being on a championship winning team. I just think he's not that type of player. He's that type of player that's going to play relentless. He's going to get you the numbers. But in terms of winning a championship, I just don't think Russell Westbrook fits that mold whatsoever. I feel like they're definitely going to trade him this offseason. I think you guys will echo me on that.
I love what you just said. Yes, we haven't seen them at their full potential. The same thing you could say about the Brooklyn Nets this past season. Yeah, just if you had them at full potential, what could they have been? I just think really with the injuries and Westbrook not panning out the way they wanted him to, just really fell apart, not only under their knees, but really flat out in front of everybody, being a big market team, just a complete disaster. Jared? Did you have a thought on that?
Yeah, so I've never been the biggest on basketball. I do follow what goes around, and I think the Lakers missing the playoffs, it says something more about sports over the past couple of years as a whole. Sometimes going bigger and going all in on something, it doesn't always work. Like in football, we see, Buccaneers, they get Tom Brady, they win the Super Bowl. Rams, they get Matt Stafford, they win the Super Bowl. So all these teams they're putting all the chips into the table. They're going all in. They're ready to win and they're ready now. But I feel like having all these great players on the team, it's not as important as the chemistry that is created between the players. Like, if you think about it, who would have thought at the beginning of the season Bengals were going to the Super Bowl? No one did. No one did. Unless you're a diehard Bengals fan. Even then, they didn't even think they're going to win a playoff game. But they jived with each other so well that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, that's the number one thing is chemistry. They hit the ground running. They had a phenomenal season for rookie wide receiver and a quarterback that was just barely playing. So I feel like having so much talent isn't the most important thing for a team to be successful. And I feel like that's what the Lakers and LeBron James missing in the playoffs. I think that's what it says about sports as a whole.
Jared said it best right then and there. It says a lot about sports. We look at the Lakers and what they did. They lean towards more of getting veterans so they could teach their younger players how to win. But, those veterans just weren't able to hold up all throughout the season. And that's just what ultimately hurt the Lakers down the stretch. Those veterans just weren't able to stay healthy down the stretch. And that's a thing you look at with a lot of these teams. They're young, they're hungrier. The Lakers had the veteran leadership, but when you look at it on paper, they weren't the most athletic team. They weren't the most skilled team. They won a lot with, Carmelo Anthony hasn't really won a championship. You look at Anthony Davis and LeBron James, they have the championship pedigree. But at the end of the day, this just proves that just having veterans on your team is not going to put you over the top.
Yeah, I think you guys said it best. But we're gonna wrap it up for today. I really appreciate you guys coming on. What the fans don't know, we had some technical difficulties today, so I appreciate you guys sticking it out and keep it rolling with me. I know, Fawaad, you gotta get going. So we're ready to wrap this up. We're out of time today, but thank you for joining me on another edition of Jake's Takes. Of course, I'll be back next Saturday to provide more takes. We got a lot to cover coming up. Remember to visit Tunnel Vision Sports at tvsportsmag.com and follow our Instagram at tunnelvisionsports_ and our Twitter account at TV Sports. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, guys, or follow, leave a like, comment, rating, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And for Fawaad, Farooq, and Jared Danko, I'm Jake Serrano signing off. And once again, thank you guys for listening. Really appreciate it. Keep it up. Keep listening. We got more content coming out for you guys, and I really appreciate it. And remember to keep up with all your sports needs with Tunnel Vision Sports, a positive shift in sports media.
We get it poppin', homie, day and night. Got the party jumping, about to break the ice. Stay up on my grind.